for Thorn Technologies Office Hours, episode number 3. And in this one, I, Mike, Jeff, and Rob will be having a discussion about SFTP Gateway, a Thorn Technologies product, and AWS Transfer, an Amazon product. And we are going to answer a lot of common questions that we get and try to kind of hack the evaluation process for you, because a lot of people ask us questions as they compare AWS Transfer with SFTP Gateway, and we're happy to answer these questions. And we have information on our website about our product and how it stacks up compared to others. But we're going to go through some things today. Rob has taken a deep dive into AWS Transfer and some of the features that SFTP Gateway has that AWS Transfer does not. There's also a real opportunity to save some money. That's always popular, but I know it's really big right now as people think about their budgets. And by using SFTP Gateway, there might be some opportunities for people to set up a file transfer solution for their SFTP users that is less expensive. So I'm going to go to Rob here in a second with just some of his initial thoughts on the two products side by side. But I first want to just throw it to Jeff real quick. Jeff, can you just provide just a little bit of background about SFTP Gateway existing first and then AWS Transfer hitting the market, just like a little timeline there?
Yeah, no problem. We developed SFTP Gateway. It's been about 4 or 5 years ago now. And as a software consulting company, which is how we started, we developed this product because at the time there was no other solution like it, and we needed it for our projects and for our clients that we were supporting. We had a lot of partners and vendors who had to send us files and data, and they were outside of AWS, but all of our applications were running in AWS. And because of their IT compliance and security regulations, they had to transfer via SFTP. There was no way around that. And so we developed the early version of SFTP Gateway as a way to get data via SFTP, because that's how our clients had to send it, into our applications that are running in the cloud at AWS, and specifically into our S3 buckets. And that's how we came up with SFTP Gateway. And as time went on, we had to use this solution more and more with several customers. And that's when we said, hey, if we've needed this 4 or 5 times now, how many other people out there need this? And it turned out there was quite a few. And so right away, it was very exciting, because when we put it for sale in the AWS marketplace, the results were exciting. We got thousands of customers right away in a very short amount of time, I should say. And it kind of gave us a chance to kind of iterate on the product, to evolve it a little bit, to improve it and add new features. I'd say it grew almost double the number of our users month over month until AWS came out with a similar product of their own. And I guess that might have been maybe 2018 now, is when they kind of do it. But then the exciting thing is our volume of users, or our sales, hasn't really gone down since AWS came out with their own similar product. And I think some of the things that we'll talk about today might explain why. Ours is very easy to set up. Ours is less expensive. Ours has a web-based administration portal that kind of makes it really user-friendly for people to set things up. And Rob will get into some of those differences when, the setup for AWS Transfer, I think, takes a little bit more expertise and a little bit more figuring things out. So our goal was really to help the cloud engineer or the IT system architect, because no one wants to spend hours or days or weeks just setting up an SFTP solution. Like that's just a common thing that everybody needs. You shouldn't be burning tons of hours doing that. With our solution, it's quick and it's easy, and you move on to the more important things. And that's, so now it's been, 5 years or so. We're on version 3. We've added lots of great features. We've improved the performance. We've improved the stability. We have an HA version. We can actually talk to multiple clouds, not just AWS. We can also talk to, Azure Blob Storage and Google Cloud Storage. So it's exciting. We're constantly evolving the product and adding new features and continuing to grow it.
Yeah, you mentioned features there as you were talking about it, and I think maybe that's a good place to start with Rob's analysis. Rob, do you want to just kind of comment on features in general of the two products, and maybe were there some specifically where you really think one product has an edge versus the other?
Sure. So when it comes to features, I would say SFTP Gateway and AWS Transfer have pretty close feature parity. There might be one or two things that Transfer can do that we can't, and there might be one or two things that we can do that Transfer can't. But overall, technically, you can accomplish most of what you need to do on both products. The difference lies in how easy it is to accomplish this. So, for example, with SFTP Gateway, it's really designed as an SFTP solution. It does what you would expect. You could open up the web admin portal. You could create a user. You could set key-based authentication. You could set a password. You could set folder permissions, etc. With AWS Transfer, it's really designed for a specific use case. So with AWS Transfer, they give you key-based authentication out the gate. But the moment you want to add passwords, it doesn't support that. So what you need to do is you have to implement this additional Lambda application in order to support password authentication, and then you can then point the Lambda to AWS Secrets Manager where you store those passwords. Or if you want to do like IP whitelisting, which we do, you could do it with AWS Transfer as well, but you need that Lambda to store the settings. So things that should be built in are things that you have to configure as an extra step with AWS Transfer.
And say, Rob, also, just to kind of stay in more layman's terms, sounds like when you have to do extra things with AWS Transfer, you talk about needing a Lambda. For people who may not be familiar, a Lambda is essentially like cloud code functions. So what you're really saying is you almost have to write code to make it do some of these extra things. And so it's really not a point and click and deploy kind of solution. It's almost like you need a developer to kind of step in and help out. Would you agree with that?
Yes. So for Lambda, it is code that you have to deploy. AWS does provide Lambda code for you that you could just deploy as a solution, but you need a sysadmin to deploy the CloudFormation. You need the sysadmin to maintain it, keep it updated, keep up to date on the security treadmill. If there's like a version of Python that is deprecated, it's on you to go up in and update the code so that's compliant with the latest version. You are maintaining all this code by yourself. You're on your own. So this is the kind of thing that it's easy to get it set up and running, but in terms of long term, you don't want all these different resources floating around and requiring like a senior engineer to worry about all this stuff all the time.
So it's going to take expertise that one person alone may not have, and then time, either by that person or other people they're bringing in. Did you notice yourself when you were going through the process with AWS Transfer, being somebody with a technical background, did you find though that it was still taking you a lot more time to set up AWS Transfer versus SFTP Gateway?
Um, yes, for the first time setup of AWS Transfer, for the basic built-in features, it was very quick. Like you set it up and then you just click and you could get your first user up and running very easily. But as soon as you have to add additional resources like a Lambda, secrets manager, IAM permissions, it takes research. You have to dig into it. You follow the documentation. You run into a couple of hurdles, and then now you're Googling for a couple of hours trying to get past it. Eventually, you could figure it out, and then once it's all working, but that initial learning curve, even for someone who ought to know how to do all this stuff, it does take some figuring out.
Hey, Rob. Yeah, sorry, Mike. I want to just throw out there a question. We talk about what you expect or the basic features. For anyone out there who may not be familiar with either of these products, it might make sense to just kind of quickly just explain what these basic features that we're talking about. You mentioned before that both products are essentially an SFTP solution, but they both use S3 as the backing storage. So when you connect via an SFTP client, you essentially see your folder structure, in the SFTP client, and then you can upload files, download files, and share files. And anything you want to add to that, Rob? Like, there's the features that you expect that are quick and easy, but what's a little bit harder to set up in AWS Transfer?
I guess for SFTP Gateway, for example, right? Like a very basic flow would be, I would log in, I would create an SFTP user, I would set a password, and then I want to point the user to a specific S3 location. So I would create some sort of like cloud connection to point to that bucket, and then I would point the user to that cloud connection setting. And then you upload a file, you can see all the S3 files live when you log in via SFTP. So the process is pretty straightforward with SFTP Gateway. Everything is within the web admin console. With AWS Transfer, unless you're just sticking with key-based authentication, which is like the simplest use case, as soon as you add a little bit of complexity, things get a lot more complicated very quickly. So you don't have a web admin console anymore. So everything you have to do has to be through orchestrating different AWS resources together, which might not be very intuitive, but what you would have to do is, say, taking that same case, I create a user that needs a password. Well, I can't set a password because it's not supported within AWS Transfer. So what I would have to do is have some sort of like custom authorizer. I would have to set up a Lambda that points to AWS Secrets Manager, which is another AWS service. And then Secrets Manager would then store the password. And then any other feature besides setting a public key on the user, any other feature you would also have to configure using that Lambda.
Got it. Yeah. So there's a lot of moving parts, it sounds like, in SFTP Transfer. You mentioned about creating cloud connections, which is something that you do in SFTP Gateway. We can do all kinds of cool things with multiple cloud connections, and we have some examples of that where we can set up scenarios where you're sharing folders or files with different users. Is that something that you can do with AWS Transfer easily?
It's been a little while since I took that deep dive in testing AWS Transfer. It took me, from what I remember, it took me quite a bit of effort to figure out how to get sharing working. But you need that Lambda pointing to Secrets Manager in order to figure out which bucket you're pointing to. And then through that chroot home directory bucket mapping process, you are able to configure some sort of sharing scenario with AWS Transfer, as opposed to our product where you could use folders and cloud connections, which are designed to create sharing scenarios. So you could technically configure sharing, for example, on AWS Transfer, but it's not as built in as with our product.
Cool, thanks.
All right. I want to move to another sort of theme for a minute here, and we can talk more about the technical side of things. But I look at as people evaluate these two products, I look at two of the biggest differences being one, the time, the technical expertise needed, and I think SFTP Gateway makes things simpler for people, and we've seen that with our own users over and over. Then the other thing, maybe everybody's favorite topic, is the money side of it. And I know, Rob, you took a look at this as you were looking at, the cost with SFTP Gateway. People pay 6 cents an hour after their 30-day trial ends, plus their cloud infrastructure costs with whichever cloud they're using, AWS. We're also on Azure and Google Cloud. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the expenses somebody might rack up with AWS Transfer versus SFTP Gateway? And I think this is a good topic, not just for sort of the technical people using it, but also this is a discussion that may reach some of the leadership that's making decisions about budget who aren't as into maybe what the tech team might be into.
Sure. So as you mentioned, SFTP Gateway is 6 cents per hour that you're running the instance. The moment you stop the instance, you're no longer being charged. So you can evaluate it and then stop the instance and then stop being charged. For AWS Transfer, because it's serverless, there are no instances that you're running. But what you're paying for is an endpoint. So if you have an SFTP endpoint, they're going to charge you not 6 cents per hour, but 30 cents per hour. And that endpoint cannot be stopped or disabled. So you can't stop it overnight. You can't stop it on weekends. The moment you create the endpoint, you are being charged for that endpoint 30 cents an hour until you delete it. And that's per endpoint. So they also have like an FTPS endpoint. And if you want both SFTP and FTPS, they would be 30 cents each. So that would double your cost to have that additional protocol. So that is just for the endpoint alone. That is not factoring in any other additional costs, and there are additional costs. So traditionally with AWS, data ingress is free. So for example, if you upload a gigabyte file, you do not pay for the network bandwidth going into AWS. You'll pay for the storage on S3, which is pretty cheap, but you don't pay for the network ingress. They charge you on the egress. So if you have a web server that is serving out these image files, you serve out a gig of data, you would pay maybe like 8 or 9 cents per gig for that egress. Now for our product, for SFTP Gateway, you're not charged for the ingress either because we're using that model, the traditional model. However, with AWS Transfer, they introduced a new pricing model where you split the cost for ingress and egress. So for example, say if you upload a gig of data, now this is talking about network ingress, egress, you pay for half the cost on the way in for ingress and half on the way out for egress. And at first glance, it seems pretty fair. It's like, well, it's just splitting the cost half in, half out. But this could be cost prohibitive. Say if you have like a large backlog of data that you're trying to get into S3, if you're using AWS Transfer to get like a data center's worth of storage into S3, you're going to pay for all that network ingress, or half of it at least. Or if you have like a call center application, like you're recording customer support calls, the audio, you upload that. That's going to be a lot of data. Some people might generate like a terabyte per month or something. You're going to have to pay the ingress on that. So you have that additional cost. Another cost is through AWS Secrets Manager, which I mentioned earlier. So if you're using key-based authentication, you could just, use the built-in feature, but you don't always have control over what your clients require, your SFTP clients, that is. So say that your clients need to have password authentication. And say you have a lot of users. Say if you have like 1,000 users, you're going to have to create 1,000 accounts in AWS Secrets Manager, and that's 40 cents per month per account.
Wow. If you have a lot of users, that's going to add up to quite a bit.
I mean, it sounds like it's just a lot of work too to set up a user, right?
Yes, it is more work for the system engineer to orchestrate all these services together. But there's also more cost for specific use cases. If you have a lot of users, if you have a lot of data that you are ingesting into S3, or just having an endpoint, the endpoint alone, 30 cents per hour. I mean, if you're a large enterprise, you might not even care about that. Cost money is no object. But for a lot of small to medium businesses, you have a budget for these type of things, and you're looking at SFTP Gateway, 6 cents per hour for a single server, and you might run it on a server that maybe runs at like 5 cents per hour, like 5 cents per hour EC2 instance. Say that's like, say 10 cents per hour, 30 cents compared to 10, that's like 3x the cost right off the bat.
Right.
You mentioned about large enterprises though, and maybe cost is not as big a concern, but managing their users in a large enterprise does get very complicated. And many large enterprises already have their users set up in directories, and they want to use their own pools of users and things like that. So, can you talk to that? How easy is that to do in both products?
So are you talking about like OAuth?
Yeah, basically a federated identity service, right? So whether it's an Active Directory or even something like Cognito or something like that. Like, can you manage your users outside using a third-party identity provider?
With AWS Transfer, I haven't tested this by hand myself, but based off the documentation, it looks like you can, like using that Lambda, you could use a custom authorizer. Instead of pointing to AWS Secret Manager, you could point to Cognito or some sort of OAuth provider.
But you basically have to write code to call the APIs of an identity provider. Is that fair to say?
Probably. You would probably have to do it yourself. If there isn't a pre-made AWS solution out there, if that doesn't exist, then you're on your own.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right.
But just to finish on that, but SFTP Gateway, on the other hand, like that's built into the product. You could set up a third-party identity provider in the admin interface with just a few clicks, right?
Right. In our latest version, we added that.
Great.
Okay. Another area I want to touch on is support, and what happens if you run into issues with AWS Transfer versus SFTP Gateway, whether it's during the deployment process or maybe you're trying to troubleshoot something after you have it up and running. And right now is a good time for us to plug that with SFTP Gateway, you get free email support from Rob and his team. So if there's some information on thorntech.com/support about that, but basically if you have a problem, you can email us and we'll get back to you pretty quickly. And there are some other options we offer, such as screen sharing and phone support that people can pay for an advanced support package so they can get those things. But Rob, can you just talk about the differences between our support, especially having access to the free email support, and what happens if you run into an AWS transfer issue?
Sure. So for SFTP Gateway, you have access to free email support. So you just shoot us an email, and then we'll help you. Um, if you run into an issue with AWS Transfer, in order to contact, it would just be like with any other issue. If you had an issue trying to figure out EC2 or S3, you would have to purchase, I think, basic support with AWS. I forget what the cost is, but you would have to purchase that in order to email them, and then they'll get back to you and help you out. Or you would just have to go on Stack Overflow and figure it out yourself.
Right. And we should mention that we have our knowledge base too. So a lot of people, even though our email support is free, some people just like to go into our knowledge base because that's there 24 hours a day, whenever they want. Lots and lots of documentation. And did you have an easy time or a hard time finding, similar documentation for AWS Transfer?
AWS Transfer has it has documentation. They also have those reInvent videos, and there's also, if you go on YouTube, there are other streamers that have evaluated AWS Transfer, and they walk through and click through setting it up and everything like that. In order for me to evaluate AWS Transfer and try to achieve feature parity with what we provide, and keep digging until I could implement everything on AWS Transfer that we provide through our product. I had to watch some reInvent videos. I had to watch maybe like 5 or 6 different, a handful of YouTube walkthroughs with AWS Transfer. I read through all the documentation. It was it took some research to get the hang of things.
Cool. And just touching again on support for a second, I want to say this as the CEO. Rob and his team actually do a great job of helping people out when they need it. And as a testament to that, you can see it. You can look right at the reviews on the AWS Marketplace page. You can see how many customers have left comments and complimented Rob and his team on just the quality of the support that they give. And so that definitely is something that we take pride in.
Yeah, okay. I love that in the reviews on the AWS Marketplace. We have over 20 reviews, and I like the reviews that there's a couple things that happen. People just review the product. It's great, does exactly what I want, or it's very affordable, whatever it might be. But then, people are going to run into problems. And that's what I love about our reviews is some people have talked about, I ran into this issue, but the team quickly helped me solve this problem. Nothing is going to run perfectly. People are going to run into different technical issues with all sorts of things. But I love that our reviews have some people who ran into a difficulty with the product, and we figured it out for them.
It's not just always a difficulty with the product too. What we've found with so many different customers over the years is that there's so many different use cases, so everybody has a slightly different set of requirements or a different need. And I think our product is flexible enough that, you get on the phone or just have a conversation with our support team, and we can steer you in the right direction to kind of set it up so it does meet that use case. And it's usually pretty easy.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of our
go ahead, Rob.
A lot of our customers, there's sysadmins, they have to support Windows servers, Linux servers. They have to support a segmented network environment where you have private subnets, you have VPNs, jump boxes. It's very complicated, and they have our customers. They have to do everything, and then they get assigned a task, spin up an SFTP solution. And SFTP, while it seems kind of basic, everyone should really know this. It is kind of specialized. like an SFTP solution has its own quirks, its own like it's difficult in that you have to support so many different SFTP clients. Like it's like you're herding cats. You could have a client base that has a lot of like custom legacy scripts. You have to support all of them. You have customers that are not like uploading, thousands of files, ETL workloads. You have all these different SFTP use case scenarios, and SFTP is on the bottom of everyone's priority list. And our customers, they have to spin something up that supports all of this, and then move on to whatever they normally do. And so a lot of our support is really just walking people through the common pitfalls that you would have with SFTP. A lot of customers are in a Windows environment, or they're primarily Windows Server administrators. So they don't have experience with the Linux command line, let alone the specific operating system that we use. So there are a lot of people who are like, you know what, I just want to get this set up running. Can you walk me through, give me some best practices on how you would approach the workload that we have? And then we usually give them advice like, hey, I would do this for now, but when you go into production, you got to watch out for this, for example. Yeah. So a lot of people, they turn to our support for not just issues and errors that they run into, but for a broader range of things.
And guidance.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people reaching out in the deployment process, how do I get this to do what I want it to do for me? Is there anything else that you guys want to touch on, that people might want to consider as they evaluate AWS Transfer next to SFTP Gateway that we haven't talked about already?
There's one other thing that is slightly related to things that we discussed earlier. I want to use, I guess, WordPress as an analogy. So back in the day, you would have like hard-coded HTML. And it's just like, if I want to change the grammar on a sentence, or I want to add a period that's missing, back in the day, you would have to ask the developer and say, hey, can you add a period into the HTML and then deploy this up to production? And it's kind of ridiculous if you think about it, like having a developer making text changes, right? Nowadays, we have things like WordPress or other content management systems where you don't have the developer making content changes. You have people who do content making those content changes, and that just makes sense. With SFTP Gateway, we have a web admin portal where you could be someone maybe someone on the business side who's creating new SFTP accounts, and you don't need the command line. You don't need to be a sysadmin. You could just be a business person or a manager, and you could be creating new users, configuring them, for example. Now with AWS Transfer, as soon as you start using passwords and these other features that require Lambda and all these other things, now you sort of need a system engineer to create a new user. You need a system engineer to point this user to that bucket. So now you have engineering doing work that really should be handled by a different role.
Yeah, I think it's a really good high level like differentiator between. It sounds like the products are really used by like two different types of users for the most part. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, I really like the WordPress analogy. As somebody who uses WordPress and knows a little HTML, who used to have to go to developers when I wanted to change something on a web page, WordPress really was a game changer. It saved not just me time and got things done quicker, but also saved the time of whoever I was going to, and taking them away from their tasks to help me like put a new banner on a website. So, that's really relatable for me. And I think that a lot of the people that I hear about who are using SFTP Gateway are using it because they're not in a deep technical role,
Right.
and they're able to manage users or set up an easy way for somebody to transfer some files without having to go and find that other person to do it.
Yeah, you gave an example earlier, like Rob, about like a call center, and like we have a lot of customers who are users like that, where they're using a third-party product or a tool, and their business is to run a call center or maybe a financial services institution, and like that's their core strength. They don't really have anybody on staff who's a security expert and knows how to set up an SFTP server, but the product or the tool that they're using has a way to archive data via SFTP or transfer data, so they're like, oh, well, I need to set up an SFTP server so we can just archive our data, and for many of our users, they try to do that themselves, and it's not their area of expertise. But getting our product set up quickly and easily, and then they just put the SFTP credentials into their third-party product, and then now archives to S3 where everything is uploaded, so there's no cost for the upload. And then there's even long-term storage options on S3 where it automatically moves to Glacier or stuff like that. It really becomes a very cost-effective storage and archival solution as well. And we definitely have a lot of customers who are using it for that use case.
There's a few things I want to mention for people watching this. First of all, if you post comments with any questions you have about our product, we do keep an eye on those, and we'll get back to you and answer it there. You can also email us anytime at support@thorntech.com. You can go to thorntech.com also and find links to documentation. Our blog or our success stories section of the website has a lot of examples of ways people are using SFTP Gateway. And then I just want to mention a couple other videos. In the very first Thorn Technologies office hours video that we did, Dan from our team did a walkthrough of how to deploy SFTP Gateway for AWS. And he went to the marketplace and went through the whole process. And I asked him some questions along the way as somebody who's never deployed it before. And that's another place people can check out our product as they're weighing their options. And then in our SFTP Gateway playlist on YouTube, there are all sorts of videos, all sorts of how-to videos, tips to things, on things people might run into along the way that are unique to maybe their situation. But we also have some really great quick start videos. And Bryce from our team's been putting together lots of videos out there that you can use to get up and running quickly. So if you want to test it out, you can use that, plus the documentation at help.thorntech.com. And then, like other people have done, if you're in a testing phase and seeing if this is the right thing for you, that's a great time to reach out to Rob and the support team as well. Yeah. And they're happy to answer questions as you evaluate your options. Any closing thoughts from you guys?
No, I always like to kind of tease what else we got going on.
Yeah, go for it. Do it.
SFTP Gateway is, our first major marketplace product, and it's still growing. We're still supporting it. We're still adding features, but we've had a lot of users request the ability to upload or download or share files, not just via SFTP, but through their browser with a normal kind of like Dropbox sort of like interface where you can drag and drop and just download files. And so we're in the final stages of that now. We have a beta version that's going to be coming out this quarter. We're really excited because the nice feature is, one of the nice features is the ability to private label the look and feel. So you can set up a file sharing dashboard with your company logo or your company's color schemes and styles. And so that's really exciting. If you're interested in trying it out, you can reach out to us at support@thorntech.com, or there's lots of ways to get in touch with us. But we're definitely looking for people who want to get an early glimpse of this product and give us some feedback. So let us know.
Cool. Rob, anything you want to tell people before we wrap this up?
Something I mentioned before, but I just want to reiterate. SFTP is difficult. You have to support so many different SFTP clients. You have to support so many edge cases. It's just a tough problem to solve. And so if you're trying to implement SFTP and you're running into issues, you're not the only one. There are a lot of issues to run into out there. Yeah. So feel free to reach out to us at support@thorntech.com, and then we'll figure it out together.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because like even like security standards kind of change too, right? And so I don't want to start a whole new topic here, but it's important to point out that like the type of encryption, for example, that goes into an SFTP server, like some of it's obsolete. Some of it is like if you're using an old cipher, it's vulnerable. And so I think that there is some knowledge that needs to go into setting up a server just to make sure that you're keeping up with modern security practices and you're not using something that's become obsolete or vulnerable, right, Rob?
Definitely, and you have to support that one client that's using that obsolete cipher. At the same time, you have to support these other clients that require high security. So you have to sort of bridge that gap for them.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. Fortunately, we make that easy for you.
Yeah, we could do a whole office hours sometime on some security topics.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, thank you both for doing this. Jeff, thanks for jumping on another office hours.
You got it.
Rob, thanks for doing this, and thanks for all the time you put into evaluating the two products. I really appreciate you jumping in to share it all with us. And thank you to you and Bryce for all the support you do, because it's really hard sometimes to, promote a product, get customers in the door, get them trying things. And then when you do, everybody you can keep as a customer is incredibly valuable because of all the effort it takes to find a new person. So I know from all the emails I see, all the reviews I see, that you guys are keeping lots of people happy after they've made this decision to make SFTP Gateway their choice. So hopefully we've helped some people make the decision. Like we said, just get in touch with us if you have any questions. And that'll wrap it up for this office hours. But subscribe to the channel and you won't miss the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.